The massive alien ships appeared on a quiet Tuesday morning. They emerged from nowhere, their sleek metal hulls gleaming in the sunlight as they positioned themselves above every major city on Earth. Humanity's first contact with an advanced civilization had arrived, and it wasn't going as anyone had hoped. Inside the United Earth Defense Headquarters, Admiral James stood with his hands clasped behind his back, watching the main screen with a stern expression. The alien vessel above Washington, D.C. was twice the size of an aircraft carrier, its surface smooth and flawless like polished chrome. "They're hailing us again, sir," reported the communications officer. Admiral James took a deep breath. "Put them through." The alien that appeared on screen called himself Lord Grey. His species looked almost human-like, except for their metallic skin and eyes that glowed with an inner light. The alien's mouth curved into what might have been a smile, but it didn't reach those glowing eyes. "Your weapons are quite amusing," Lord Grey said, his voice translated through their advanced systems. "We've been watching your military exercises. Projectile weapons. Missiles. How quaint." Admiral James felt his jaw tighten, but kept his voice steady. "Our weapons have served us well enough." "Have they?" Lord Grey raised what appeared to be an eyebrow. "Allow me to demonstrate real weapons technology." The screen split to show a small alien ship approaching one of Earth's obsolete satellite defense platforms. A beam of pure energy lanced out from the alien vessel, and the satellite simply ceased to exist. No explosion, no debris, just gone. The room fell silent. Admiral James heard someone behind him whisper, "Dear God." "That," Lord Grey said with obvious satisfaction, "is just our basic point defense system. Now, shall we discuss Earth's position in the Galactic Council?" Over the next hour, Lord Grey laid out humanity's options. The aliens offered protection in exchange for Earth joining their council as a protectorate. The alternative was complete isolation from galactic society. It wasn't really a choice at all. "You have 24 hours to discuss this with your world leaders," Lord Grey said. "Though I can't imagine why you'd need so long to make such an obvious decision." After the transmission ended, Admiral James turned to his second in command. "Get me the President, and contact Dr. Smith at Project Thunder. Tell him." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "Tell him to accelerate the timeline." Later that day, world leaders gathered virtually to discuss their options. The Chinese premier argued for acceptance. The Russian president suggested fighting back. The American president just looked tired. "Our most advanced weapons can't even scratch their ships," the British Prime Minister pointed out. "Did you see what they did to that satellite?" Admiral James listened to them argue, his mind on the secret facility deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. Project Thunder had been his idea, a backup plan for exactly this kind of situation. While the aliens laughed at humanity's primitive weapons, they had no idea what was being developed in that underground lab. The next morning, Earth's leaders announced their decision to accept the Galactic Council's offer of protection. Lord Grey's smile grew wider. "A wise choice," he said. "We'll begin implementing the protection protocols immediately. Your military forces will, of course, need to be adjusted to meet Council standards." As the alien ships took up permanent positions around Earth, Admiral James sent a coded message to the Project Thunder facility. "He do you are Kang. Stay hidden." That night, as he looked up at the alien ship hovering over the city, its hull glowing softly in the darkness, Admiral James thought about humanity's long history of being underestimated. The aliens saw Earth's weapons as primitive, laughable even. They thought they knew everything about humanity's military capabilities. They were wrong. In the depths of the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Smith and his team were about to prove just how wrong they were. Because sometimes the old ways, updated with new innovations, could surprise even the most advanced civilization in the galaxy. The aliens had laughed at human weapons. Soon, they wouldn't be laughing anymore. 3 miles beneath the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Smith watched his team work through the reinforced glass of the observation room. The massive railgun prototype took up most of the underground chamber, its barrel stretching nearly the length of a football field. Project Thunder had been his life's work for the past decade, and now it was humanity's best hope. "Power systems are holding steady at 60%, reported Tom, the young engineer who had joined the project just 2 years ago. Despite his age, Tom had proven himself invaluable, especially when it came to solving the railgun's enormous power consumption problems. Dr. Smith nodded, making notes on his tablet. "How's the heat dispersion?" "Better than yesterday. The new cooling system is working." Tom pointed to the readings on his screen. "We're still not at full power, but we're getting closer." The facility had changed since the aliens arrived. Security had tripled, and they'd installed new shielding to hide their electromagnetic signature from the alien ships above. Every person working on Project Thunder knew they were Earth's secret weapon, the one thing the aliens didn't know about. A soft beep announced an incoming transmission. Dr. Smith pressed a button, and Admiral James appeared on the screen. "How's our progress?" the Admiral asked, his voice tight with tension. "We've made breakthroughs," Dr. Smith replied. "Remember that alien tech we salvaged from their garbage dumps last month? Tom figured out how to integrate their power cells into our systems. It's increased our efficiency by 40%. The Admiral's eyebrows rose. "The aliens just throw away technology like that." "They think it's worthless," Tom spoke up from his station. "Their energy weapons use different principles. They never thought to use this tech for kinetic weapons. Their loss, our gain." Dr. Smith smiled at Tom's confidence. The young engineer had a point. The aliens' arrogance was becoming their weakness. They dismissed Earth's technology so completely that they didn't bother monitoring what humans did with their discarded equipment. "We've got another problem," Admiral James said, his face growing serious. "The aliens are pushing for more control over our military installations. They're asking questions about some of our power usage. We need that railgun operational sooner rather than later." Dr. Smith walked over to the main viewport, looking at the massive weapon. "We're close, Admiral. The basic principle is simple: accelerate a projectile to near light speed using electromagnetic forces, but doing it without melting the gun or draining the power of half the continent. That's the tricky part." "How long?" the Admiral asked. Before Dr. Smith could answer, alarms started blaring throughout the facility. Tom's fingers flew over his keyboard. "We've got movement topside," he shouted. "Alien scout ship passing right over the mountains." Everyone froze. If their shielding failed, if the aliens detected what they were building. Seconds ticked by like hours. Finally, the alarms stopped. "They're moving on," Tom reported, relief clear in his voice. "Shielding held. They didn't see us." Dr. Smith let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. That was too close. He turned back to the Admiral's image. "Give us 2 more weeks. We'll have something ready to test by then." The Admiral nodded. 2 weeks. Make them count." The screen went dark. Dr. Smith turned to his team, who were all watching him expectantly. "All right, people. New schedule. We work in shifts, 24 hours a day. Tom, I want you focused on the power integration. The rest of you, double-check every calculation, every component. We get one shot at this." As his team rushed to their stations with renewed purpose, Dr. Smith looked again at the railgun. The aliens thought human weapons were primitive, a joke. They had no idea that humans had taken their primitive concepts and pushed them to theoretical limits. In 2 weeks, they would have a weapon capable of launching a projectile at speeds the aliens thought impossible for primitive technology. In 2 weeks, they would show the galaxy that sometimes the old ways were the best ways, especially when improved with a healthy dose of human ingenuity and a bit of stolen alien tech. The real joke would be on the aliens, and no one would be laughing then. The first attack came without warning. Space pirates, the Galactic Council claimed, had destroyed 3 cargo ships near Jupiter's orbit. Admiral James watched the security footage with growing anger. The pirates used the same ships and weapons as the Council's fleet. Another attack, sir, his aide reported, placing a tablet on his desk. This time they hit a mining station near Mars. 20 people dead. Admiral James clenched his fists. The Council's ships, supposedly protecting Earth's space, had been nowhere to be found during either attack. Their excuses were getting thinner by the day. Lord Grey is requesting to speak with you, the aide added quietly. The alien leader appeared on screen, his metallic face showing what passed for concern. Such unfortunate events, he said smoothly. If only Earth had better defenses. Of course, your primitive weapons would be useless against these pirates. Funny how these pirates know exactly when and where to strike. Admiral James replied, keeping his voice level, almost like they're being told. Lord Grey's glowing eyes narrowed slightly. Are you suggesting something, Admiral? Just noting a pattern. Like how your protection ships are never around when we need them. The alien leader's face hardened. Perhaps if Earth contributed more resources to the Council, we could provide better protection. Your planet's mineral wealth sits largely untapped. After ending the call, Admiral James immediately contacted the underground facility. Dr. Smith's face appeared, looking tired but determined. Tell me you have good news, the Admiral said. We're ready for the first full test, Dr. Smith replied. But we have another problem. The aliens are setting up some kind of scanning array in orbit. If they activate it before we're done, they'll find the facility. Admiral James finished. How long do you need? 24 hours. We've got the railgun powered up to 70%. Tom thinks he can push it to 90. A warning light flashed on the Admiral's desk. Another attack, this time on a civilian transport near Venus. The death toll was rising, and Earth's conventional weapons remained useless against the pirates' shields. In the Rocky Mountain facility, Tom worked frantically at his station. The railgun hummed with power, its massive barrel gleaming under the industrial lights. They'd manufactured special projectiles using a mix of earth metals and salvaged alien materials. Each one cost more than a fighter jet. But if they worked, power fluctuation in Sector 7. Someone shouted. Reroute through the backup systems, Dr. Smith ordered. Tom, how are we looking? 85% power and holding, Tom reported. The alien power cells are performing better than expected. We can do this. Above ground, more alien ships arrived daily. They called themselves protectors, but their actions told a different story. They restricted Earth's space travel, controlled trade, and demanded increasing amounts of resources. The pirate attacks continued, always targeting vital installations or ships carrying valuable cargo. Admiral James received reports from other military leaders around the world. The Russians had noticed alien ships scanning their territory. The Chinese reported unusual energy readings from the ships above their cities. Everyone knew something big was coming. In a secure conference room, Earth's military leaders met secretly. They're preparing for something, the Russian general said. These pirates, the scanning arrays, the increased demands for resources. They're softening us up. Admiral James agreed, making us desperate for their protection while weakening our ability to resist. What can we do? Asked the Chinese admiral. Our weapons are useless against their shields. Admiral James thought of the railgun, nearly ready for testing. We keep playing along, he said. Let them think we're helpless. But get your forces ready. When the time comes, we'll show them what primitive weapons can really do. As the meeting ended, another alert came in. Pirates had struck again, this time destroying a research station. The death toll was mounting, and Earth's patience was running out. In the mountain facility, the railgun's power levels hit 87%. Soon, very soon, humanity would demonstrate that sometimes the simplest weapons were the deadliest. The aliens' laughter was about to stick in their throats. The underground testing chamber was dead silent. Dr. Smith stood at the main control panel, his hands hovering over the activation sequence. Behind him, Tom monitored the power levels while dozens of engineers and technicians watched from their stations. This was the moment they had all worked for. "Final systems check," Dr. Smith announced, his voice echoing in the massive chamber. "Power systems. 95% and stable," Tom reported, surprise evident in his voice. "The alien power cells are performing beyond expectations. Cooling systems, all green. Targeting computers, locked on the test target. One abandoned satellite, positioned exactly 10,000 kilometers out." Dr. Smith took a deep breath. They had constructed a special testing range far from the alien ship's usual patrol routes. The target was an old Earth satellite, its position carefully calculated to ensure the test wouldn't draw unwanted attention. "Admiral James is online," someone called out. The Admiral's face appeared on the main screen. "Are we ready?" "As ready as we'll ever be," Dr. Smith replied. "If this works, we'll have proof that our railgun can penetrate alien shield technology." The Admiral nodded grimly. "Make it count. We may not get another chance at this." Dr. Smith turned to his team. "Clear the testing chamber. Activate radiation shields. This is not a drill." The massive railgun hummed to life, its electromagnetic coils charging with power. The barrel, longer than a football field, glowed with a faint blue light. In the loading chamber, a single projectile waited, a specially designed round made from a combination of earth metals and reverse-engineered alien materials. "Power at 98%, Tom announced. "Temperature nominal. Electromagnetic shielding holding steady. Beginning countdown." Dr. Smith said, his finger moving to the final activation button. 10, 9, 8. Warning lights flashed throughout the facility as the power buildup reached critical levels. The humming grew louder, becoming a deep vibration that shook the entire mountain. 5, 4, 3. "Power at maximum," Tom shouted. "We're actually at 100%. 2, 1. Dr. Smith pressed the button. The world seemed to pause for a fraction of a second. Then, with a sound like thunder magnified 1,000 times, the railgun fired. The recoil shook the entire facility despite its massive dampeners. Monitoring equipment sparked and sizzled from the electromagnetic pulse. "Target tracking activated," someone called out. "Projectile velocity. This can't be right." "What is it?" Admiral James demanded. "Sir, the projectile is traveling at 30% of light speed. That's faster than anything humans have ever built." Everyone watched the main screen as the projectile covered the vast distance in seconds. When it struck the test satellite, there was no explosion. The target simply vanished, transformed into subatomic particles by the sheer kinetic force of impact. "Sweet mother of," Tom whispered. Dr. Smith checked the readings again and again. The projectile maintained coherence throughout acceleration. Impact energy was beyond our ability to measure. If this had hit something with alien shields, the shields would mean nothing. Admiral James finished. At that velocity, nothing could stop it, not even their most advanced defensive technology. The room burst into cheers. Years of work, countless failures, and endless setbacks had led to this moment. Humanity had created something unprecedented, a weapon that could bypass the supposedly invincible alien shields through sheer kinetic force. "How soon can we reproduce this?" Admiral James asked. "We've already started building more," Dr. Smith replied. "The designs are distributed to hidden facilities around the world. Give us 1 week to miniaturize the technology for ships." "You have 3 days," the Admiral said. "The aliens are planning something big. We need to be ready." As the celebration continued around him, Dr. Smith stared at the test results. The aliens had laughed at human weapons, calling them primitive and outdated. But they had forgotten something crucial. Sometimes the simplest solutions were the most effective. They had tried to match alien energy weapons, but instead they had perfected an ancient human concept: throw something really, really hard. And soon, no one would be laughing at human weapons ever again. The massive hologram of Lord Grey flickered above every major city on Earth. His metallic face showed no emotion, but his glowing eyes burned with cold intensity. The time for pretense was over. People of Earth, his voice boomed across the planet. Your trial period as a protectorate has ended. The Galactic Council has deemed your world too valuable to be left in primitive hands. You will surrender your resources and accept relocation to designated colonies. Resistance is inadvisable. In the United Earth Defense Headquarters, Admiral James watched the broadcast with grim satisfaction. They had been right all along. The pirates, the increasing demands, the scanning arrays, it had all been preparation for this moment. Sir, his aide rushed in. Alien ships are moving into attack positions. They're powering up weapons. Send the signal, Admiral James ordered. Activate all hidden facilities. Operation Thunderbolt begins now. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Smith and his team sprang into action. The main railgun powered up, joined by dozens of smaller versions they had built and hidden around the world. Thanks to Tom's breakthroughs, they had managed to miniaturize the technology in just 3 days. Multiple alien ships detected, Tom reported from his station. They're launching dropships. Ground invasion is beginning. Lord Grey's voice came through again, this time directed specifically at Earth's military command. Your pathetic weapons cannot harm our ships. Surrender now, and we will be merciful. Admiral James stepped up to the communication panel. You know, Lord Grey, you really should have paid more attention to those primitive weapons you laughed at. What are you? The Admiral cut him off with a gesture. Dr. Smith, demonstrate our primitiveness. In the mountain facility, Dr. Smith gave the command. All railgun batteries, fire at will. The first shot came from the Rocky Mountains facility. The massive railgun fired its projectile at 30% light speed, aimed directly at one of the alien capital ships. The aliens, so confident in their shields, didn't even try to dodge. The projectile struck the alien ship dead center. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, like a paper model caught in a blowtorch, the mighty vessel simply ceased to exist. The kinetic energy of the impact had turned it into scattered atoms. Impossible. Lord Grey's voice cracked with shock. Your weapons are primitive. They cannot. Another shot, this time from a hidden facility in the Ural Mountains. Another alien ship vanished. Then one from the Andes, the Himalayas, the Alps. You see, Lord Grey, Admiral James said calmly, while you were busy laughing at our primitive weapons, we were improving them. Sometimes the old ways just need a little updating. Panic spread through the alien fleet. Their impenetrable shields, designed to stop energy weapons, were useless against projectiles moving at relativistic speeds. Simple physics. Even the strongest energy shield couldn't stop that much kinetic force. This is impossible. Lord Grey raged. You're savages, primitives who just destroyed half your invasion fleet. Admiral James replied. Now about that surrender. Dr. Smith watched the tactical display as more alien ships vanished under the railgun assault. Years of being mocked, years of being treated like children, and all along they had been building the perfect weapon. Alien ships are retreating, Tom announced, grinning. They're running. But Lord Grey had one final card to play. His flagship, larger than all the others, moved into position above New York City. If we cannot have Earth's resources, then nobody. His threat was cut short as 3 railgun shots hit his ship simultaneously. The massive vessel disappeared in a flash of light, taking its commander with it. In the aftermath, Admiral James addressed his command staff. Send word to all facilities. Well done, everyone. Today we showed the galaxy that humanity won't be pushed around. And we did it with our primitive, laughable weapons. Dr. Smith looked at his team, pride evident on his face. They had taken humanity's oldest weapon concept, throwing things at high speed, and turned it into something that could challenge the most advanced alien technology. The aliens had laughed at human weapons. Now, they would never forget them. The sky over Earth turned into a battlefield. After the destruction of Lord Grey's flagship, the remaining alien ships regrouped. Their initial retreat had been a ruse. Now they returned in greater numbers, filling the atmosphere with their gleaming hulls. Second wave incoming, Tom announced from his station in the Rocky Mountain facility, counting over 200 ships. They've changed their formation. They're trying to stay out of our firing solutions. Dr. Smith watched the tactical display with growing concern. The aliens had adapted quickly. Their ships now moved in irregular patterns, making it harder for the railguns to target them. "They're learning," he said grimly. "Admiral, are you seeing this?" Admiral James's voice came through the speakers. "They're splitting into smaller groups, attacking multiple targets at once. They're trying to overwhelm our defensive grid." The aliens had indeed learned from their first defeat. Instead of relying on their shields, they now used speed and numbers. Energy beams lanced down from their ships, targeting what they thought were Earth's railgun facilities. Most hit empty bunkers, decoys set up for exactly this purpose. "Multiple hits on Santiago defense grid," someone reported. "Sydney under heavy fire. Moscow reporting direct engagement." Dr. Smith turned to his team. "Activate the secondary arrays." Implementation code. Thunderstruck. Around the world, smaller railguns emerged from hidden bunkers. While the aliens had focused on the major mountain facilities, humanity had prepared a surprise. Hundreds of miniaturized railguns, each small enough to fit on a truck, powered up. They weren't as powerful as the main guns, but they didn't need to be. "All units, fire at will," Admiral James commanded. The world erupted in synchronized violence. The main railguns from the mountain facilities took out the larger alien ships, while the mobile units engaged the smaller ones. Alien vessels disappeared one after another, transformed into cosmic dust by projectiles moving at near-light speed. But the aliens fought back fiercely. Several defense installations were hit, their crews fighting until the end. The skies above major cities turned into light shows as energy weapons met hypervelocity rounds. "They're targeting population centers," Tom shouted as alien ships descended toward major cities. "Not for long," Dr. Smith replied. He activated the final defensive system, building-mounted railguns, hidden in skyscrapers and disguised as communication arrays. As the alien ships came within range, they faced point-blank fire from weapons they never saw coming. In New York, a hidden railgun in the Empire State Building took out 3 alien ships with a single shot, the projectile passing through all 3 at relativistic speed. In Tokyo, building-mounted guns cleared the sky in seconds. London's financial district revealed itself to be a deadly killing ground for alien vessels. "Their formation is breaking," Admiral James reported. "They didn't expect this level of defense. Push them back." The aliens began to retreat in earnest this time, but Earth's forces showed no mercy. The railguns tracked and destroyed ship after ship. Those that tried to flee found their escape routes blocked by precisely calculated shots. "Sir," Tom called out, "I'm picking up energy readings from the remaining ships. They're charging their main weapons. This is their last stand," Dr. Smith realized. "They'll try to take as much of Earth with them as they can." But before the alien ships could fire, a coordinated barrage from every remaining railgun on Earth struck simultaneously. The sky lit up like a new sun as dozens of ships were vaporized in the same instant. When the light faded, the sky was clear. Radar showed no alien ships within the solar system. Earth had won. In the Rocky Mountain facility, Dr. Smith looked at his team with pride. They were tired, some were injured, but all wore expressions of fierce satisfaction. Their primitive weapon had just saved humanity. "Admiral," he spoke into the comm, "I believe we can call Operation Thunderbolt a success." "That we can, Doctor," Admiral James replied. The aliens came expecting to find helpless primitives. Instead, they found out what happens when you push humanity into a corner. As cleanup operations began around the world, one thing was clear. No alien race would ever again make the mistake of laughing at human weapons. 6 months after the battle for Earth, Admiral James stood at a podium in the newly constructed Galactic Embassy. Representatives from 30 alien civilizations sat before him, their expressions ranging from respect to barely concealed fear. How quickly things had changed. Earth is open for peaceful trade and diplomatic relations, he announced to the gathered aliens. But let me be clear, we will defend ourselves if threatened. I believe recent events have demonstrated our capabilities. In the audience, several aliens shifted uncomfortably. The story of Earth's victory had spread through the galaxy like wildfire. The civilization that had defeated the mighty Galactic Council using primitive weapons had become something of a legend. Dr. Smith sat in the front row, Tom beside him. Their railgun technology had revolutionized space warfare. The old council had collapsed after Earth's victory, its remaining members scrambling to establish friendly relations with humanity. The humans did what with magnets? One alien whispered to another. They threw metal very fast. The other replied, very, very fast. Fast enough to turn our best ships into space dust. After the ceremony, Admiral James met with Dr. Smith and Tom in the new Earth Defense Force headquarters, built where the old United Earth Defense Building had stood. The trading agreements are signed, the Admiral said, looking at a holographic display showing Earth's new defensive network. 7 alien civilizations want to buy our railgun technology. Are we selling? Tom asked, curious. Dr. Smith shook his head. We're sharing older versions, nothing close to our current capabilities. The Mark I railguns are impressive enough to satisfy them, while our Mark Vs remain classified. The latest railguns were truly extraordinary. Using lessons learned from the battle, they had improved the technology far beyond its original specifications. The new models could fire multiple rounds per minute, with even greater velocity and accuracy. We're getting interesting trade offers, Admiral James continued. Advanced medical technology, FTL drive systems, even gravity manipulation devices. Turns out our primitive approach to physics has applications they never considered. Through the window, they could see construction crews building Earth's first space elevator. Alien technology combined with human innovation was transforming their world. Ships from dozens of civilizations now visited Earth regularly. Though all of them carefully followed the new traffic regulations, no one wanted to trigger the automated defense systems. The mining colonies on Mars are expanding, Tom reported, pulling up another hologram. The aliens are amazed at how we've adapted railgun technology for mining operations. Turns out, throwing things really fast is useful for more than just defense. Dr. Smith smiled. The same principles that made their weapons so effective had revolutionary peaceful applications. They were using miniaturized railguns for everything from space launch systems to mineral extraction. Any word from the remnants of the council? He asked. Still hiding in the outer regions, Admiral James replied. But they're not a threat anymore. Our reputation keeps most troublemakers away. Funny how being known as the species that perfected throwing rocks makes others think twice about causing problems. A notification appeared on the main screen. Another alien delegation had arrived, this time from a civilization on the galaxy's outer rim. They were especially interested in trading with Earth, having heard about the humans who had turned basic physics into an art form. You know what the best part is, Tom said, grinning. They're still underestimating us. They think the railguns were our biggest breakthrough. Wait until they see what else we've been working on. In a new facility, even deeper under the Rocky Mountains, teams of human scientists worked with alien allies on projects that would have seemed impossible a year ago. They had learned an important lesson. There was no such thing as primitive technology, only primitive thinking. To the future, Admiral James raised his coffee cup. May we keep surprising the galaxy. To the future, Dr. Smith And Tom echoed. Above them, Earth's defense satellites tracked hundreds of peaceful trading vessels coming and going. Each one passed by the Railgun platforms respectfully, a constant reminder that humanity had earned its place among the stars. No one was laughing at human weapons anymore. Instead, they were learning that underestimating humanity was the last mistake any civilization should make.